Colin and the Donovan, because that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
Yeah.
So we talked about it the other night too.
Yes. So in health class,
Yep.
right? Because it was like one semester you had strength training or PE, and then the other semester you had health class.
Yeah, and I remember going over stuff like nutrition and
yes,
stuff like that too.
Exactly. And so, but during that week, you have the same deal where like you watch like a baby be born, in the video, and
unless it's your baby.
Ooh,
I don't want to watch
our
that.
teacher played it in reverse, my G. I swear to God. Yes.
Ah.
I swear.
I
swear.
You get one of them sliders where you can just move the ball and it goes
crazy. It was a VCR, and it had like the little turn dial for reverse and forward. So it was just
one
like
of the old school ones.
Yes,
Yeah.
bro. Fuck yeah! It was early 2000 CK. Absolutely, shitty ass equipment. Yes, yeah. So VCR with a little turn dial. Yeah, so you could do it slow.
Wow.
Telling you.
That's money.
Yeah, so
I want one of those.
that, and then there was people that came in from Planned Parenthood, and one day they talked about STDs and shit like that, and then they also talked about services available in the area. And Jordan told me, my wife told me that I guess they also talked about like personal care, like health, like nails, and when to take care of your hair and whatnot.
So many young
I don't
adults
remember
need
that,
that.
so
Learn how to be
a whole
clean,
week of
hygiene.
of that. And then I don't think we didn't take it again in high school, right? That was the last time that we took any type of And I didn't take PE in high school, so maybe in a PE class you did, but I didn't.
It's probably at that point the technical requirements of the curricula had been met.
Yeah, so exactly. Yeah, that's the only time that it's mandated.
Again, might be a plus for this bill.
Yeah. You could take childhood development classes and stuff at Olympic.
Yep.
There was even like
you get the egg or
I took that in. I took that in 9th grade too. Yes, so I took.
You get a little egg. You got to
early
take
childhood
care. You
development.
and a partner have to take care of the egg.
Yes,
and make
inside
sure it
of
comes
a flour
back.
sack.
Yep.
Did you have to do that, or was it just an egg? Oh,
it was
just
an egg. Yeah, I think it was just an egg.
Okay, so ours, you had a sack of flour, and then you like opened it up and kind of dug a hole in it, and then put the egg in there and put all the flour back, and then taped it back up, and you had to take care of the sack of flour for a week.
See, I like that idea because the physics don't work out that it gives you any kind of cushion, but it makes it heavier.
Exactly, it makes it way harder. Yeah.
And
so you wrapped it
around?
all up with duct tape, and then you drew a face on it, and then like put a onesie on it, and then you had to take care of it with somebody else for a week.
A
you
cute
like
little
switched back
bag of
and forth.
flour.
And then, at the end of the week, they cut it open, and if the egg is cracked, then you failed. But if it's still one piece, then you pass.
Here's
and
my baby back. Did I murder it?
You even tap a hole in it and took the shit out, so it's just the egg shell out with the flour. Hard as fuck.
What?
Yes. Dead baby. Yeah, you're carrying around a raw egg instead of a sack of flour, which is not good. So you got to take all the egg out of there, but then then it's also harder because it's just a shell. Yes.
The only thing would be like if they were using like farm fresh eggs, you wouldn't have to worry about that shit because you can keep them on the counter at room temp. Just saying.
Yeah. So
fucking big aggro fucking with our sex health education. Well, that's good because I think we essentially did an equivalent. Because I'm always looking at this point because I haven't had kids in the school system. I have no idea what's going on.
I think I can definitely concede that it could happen more. You know what I'm saying? 3 times over 12 years is probably not very much.
Once a year seems pretty good, I guess.
Speculatively, with as young as kids are engaging in sexual activity nowadays, that's not.
They don't build them how they used to.
Should be knowing that type of shit,
Isn't that kind of weird that we've had some societal regression in that point? Like real early in society, people were having kids super young, and then like we grew out of it.
But they were doing it like on purpose though. Like they were like
they all
getting
died
married
at like
early
40.
and shit. This is just kids are just fucking and having kids early because they're not being safe.
That's a good point.
That's no good.
That is no good.
Yeah, that's just a problem. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if that's the parents. I don't know if that's whatever because this is horrible. But like
again, that's part of one of these arguments is like the state has no interest. They have no business teaching my kids sex ed.
Right.
But
because I took that and I also was never as safe as I should have been. You know what I'm saying? And I don't.
You could teach kids about that all you want, and they're not. I
don't know how you fix that, but some people are always going to do it. Some people are never going to do it. I don't know.
Honestly, it might be a fight that is always going to be in vain, but it doesn't mean you should give up the good fight. Kids are always going to fuck up. It doesn't mean you should stop teaching them not to.
Can we talk about this for a second? Let me pick your brain about this, right? Because I told you about the article that I read. It was about like the cups and the sacred flower and all the shit, right? And I read something about like transitioning it from like not abstinence based, because they've always talked about other things, but like as like a primary option, you know. And I'm not religious. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that it's a bad thing to be teaching kids. Like, you should heavily consider waiting, not until you're married, but just waiting until you're not 15 or 16. You know what I'm saying? Just fucking wait. I think that's probably the best thing to teach kids. Don't fuck. That's probably a good idea. You want to do it? We know. We were all fucking 16. We did it too. Don't do it. It's a bad idea in general. It's probably a better idea to wait. Yeah. I'm not telling anyone what they can or can't do or what they should or shouldn't do, but you probably shouldn't. Do you know what I'm saying? Yes. And I don't think that that's a bad thing for that to be the base of, you know, the base is not right, because I don't want that to be like the focal point. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think it's a bad thing to be teaching that this is the best option. Probably. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. There are other options, and they're as good as they can be, but they're not as safe as this. And this is the only, as dumb as that sounds, that because it sounded dumb when we were fucking 12, but it definitely did. Stupid as it is, I have a child now. The best way to make sure you don't get an STD or have a child is to not have sex. That's the only way to do it for certain. I've been using condoms for fucking like ever. Really good way. That's a really good way to make sure you don't have a kid. But it's not for sure. It's not for certain. It is not for certain. It can still happen. But if you're not having sex, it's not going to happen. If you're not having sex, I don't know. I feel weird like preaching that, but I don't, because it's not religiously based. I just feel like that's
Father Donovan. Yes,
and I don't think I don't think that's a bad thing to be teaching kids. I don't think that's,
and I don't think you're wrong. But
like, that's concerning to me, right? That's like, we should move away from. Why
should we not be telling kids to not fuck? That seems like a good thing. That seems like a generally good thing to be telling kids they shouldn't be having sex.
And I would like, basically, and I'm going to agree with you, but on a completely different fundamental level.
Okay.
Because let's face it, we have the oldest.
Also, please let me know if I'm off base here, because I gotta know. I don't. Not you, everyone here who's listening. I'm pointing at the camera, flipping my hand around.
I want to say this. I don't think anybody should ask, or, oh my God, I was going to ask, like a Wisconsin, unless you have a different perspective on that because you do have a child now, or would you say no? I've never heard those words come through your mouth until just now. So I don't know if that is a.
I don't know. Did I feel that way before? No?
Well, I mean, because at that point, you probably never really talked about it that much. So the only
I know for sure I thought that was a dumb thing
to
say, because I think it's a dumb thing to say now. But I think that it's true.
And I think my point will speak to your conundrum a little bit. So I think
I understand that it's hypocritical. Like, that's why I said I'm not saying I didn't do it. I did that. I was like 15 when I lost my virginity. But I also, from a personal standpoint, don't think that was the best choice that I could have made. Do you know what I'm saying? And I know I didn't know that then, and that's why I did it. And I probably didn't know it until close till I was married, when I was like, fuck, I wish that I would have waited. But I also, that's why I want to be so sincere that, like, I'm not religious. It's not a religiously based thing that, like, I really wanted to, like, save myself until I was married. Your own experience. Like, yeah, I just don't. I feel like, I don't know, man. Because I can't generalize for what most people are going to think is best, but
Well, and I think it's going to be so individual.
You can come over here and talk if you want, because I don't know what you're going to say, but I don't.
Do it, Jordan. Do it. Boom! You're on camera. Look at that! You're on camera. You got it. You do have to get a little close.
Awkward one of these.
It's not awkward to get close to your beautiful hubby.
I think you just matured a lot, and you also, I don't want to get like too deep into it, but Donovan also just views sex as a very personal thing now. It's different when you're in love. It's a whole different experience, and so having those experiences of being 15 or 16, and then having the experience of being with your wife and making a child and realize the kind of like magic that it actually is. You can wait. Like, it's, I'm not going to say, because I was the same way. I was also 15, so I'm not going to say it wasn't, like, fun or whatever, because you're 16, you're 17, whatever.
It's pretty awesome.
It's whatever. You go to parties, you do, like, we do it, right? But at the same time, you realize how different it can be and what ultimately it is. And I'm going to give a shout out to Elijah right now, because
Elijah!
I remember sitting with him, talking with him, and him telling me this same thing when I was 18, and him being like, it's better when it's with someone you love. And I'm like, whatever, Elijah. Like, it's just a thing
Wow.
you know?
Wow.
And I'm like,
Elijah's genius.
and
Yeah, he
he's
is.
amazing.
Well,
He's
we've
awesome.
talked to him. I can vouch.
Totally.
He's a
And so-
genius.
No, I think that Donovan's just matured. I don't think he's hypocritical. I think he's just matured.
Yeah.
And when you have more perspective on something, it just gives you more respect for it.
100%.
Yeah, even if it's just sex.
Now,
Yeah.
that being said, because I think that was a good way to put it, because I would
Yes.
honestly, again, this will speak to all of this. I think you can objectively argue that today's 25-year-old are the oldest children that we've ever had in our society. You could pick an age roughly, but it
I'm
definitely ain't
25
18.
right now. So
Well, you are kind of an exception to the rule, though, dude. That's kind of the way this whole thing works.
yeah.
But, objectively, there are college-aged young people
I have
who
shared a lot
are
of bad
not
stories,
adults.
yeah.
They are
Yes.
not adults. There are no way they are independent and can move around in the overall world successfully. They just can't. We have coddled our children to the point where, and these are people our age, right? We are the youngest adults that have ever graced Western civilization.
Safe spaces and trigger warnings.
Not a good sign.
Yeah.
That being said, you go all the way back, it's not, I don't know if you can fundamentally change a child's perspective on authority,
Right.
especially when it comes to your evolutionary urges, right?
Right.
And the reason, part of the evolutionary reason why people could fuck at 13 and 14 back in the 1800s and shit, because you didn't live that long, and if you didn't fuck then, you weren't going to have any kids, and you're much less raise them to adulthood before you died. It ain't like that anymore, and abstinence now,
You have time.
yeah, abstinence now becomes a factor in longevity of the species
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well as that. But at the same time, we're not. I don't know how to phrase this other than the fact that kids are really dumb,
Yeah.
and you're not.
Right.
The
I
reason
don't-
you
and I
can
don't
look
expect
back
them to
on that,
listen. Right.
but at the same time, you're also talking about this childish behavior carrying on for a lot longer than it ever used to.
Yeah.
And you put those two things into combination, and you grew up at 25 because you're kind of on the 1980s model of life, you guys. That doesn't happen that much anymore. Most people, our generation-ish, are more like Caroline and I. We're in our low 30s. We don't have kids yet, and a lot of people our age don't. A lot of generational people of our generation don't.
Jake and Morgan.
Word.
Yeah.
A
Well,
lot
that's-
of people, right?
That's another deal, but
It
that's
took-
just another
yeah.
age group example of people who don't have kids.
And to get to that
No pressure.
point at your adulthood where you realize, man, it's probably smarter not to fuck around that young. It's smarter at this point.
Yeah.
But the whole time you're fighting evolution to say this is the time,
Right.
because you know what it's like being a young man. When
Yes.
you're 13 to 21, you can't basically see straight without getting a boner awkwardly for no reason. It's like a thing that happens. You're sitting in class, in math class, and you're like, God, I hate everything. This sucks. And all of a sudden you're have this panic attack because you just popped a chub and it ain't going to go away for 15, 20 minutes, and class ends in 10 minutes.
And that's never mind. We're not
Right?
gonna keep
But-
going. We're not going to talk about that. Keep going.
So it's kind of tough to approach the subject at that point because there is so much. We want so much more for our young people
Word.
than we would have ever been able to be responsible for when we were there. So it is hard, but you can objectively look at it and go, yeah, it's a better idea to not fuck around when you're young
Right.
because it comes with all sorts of strings attached, and it's going to handicap you. Talk about fucking, equal opportunity and shit. You just gave
Yeah.
yourself massive handicaps to being super successful when you're 35 compared to the people that don't. Objectively, it is a smarter decision to be abstinent when you're that age.
Yeah.
But I understand that it's not going to happen, and you won't realize it
Right.
until it's way too late.
And like I said, I don't expect them to listen because I again, I was 15, and that's what they
Yeah.
were telling us when
Yep.
we were fucking in school. Was like, this is the only 100% way to not get pregnant and not get an STD is to be abstinent. And I was like, that's stupid. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, we had gone the full scare tactic point at that point.
Right.
Most of our sexual education was
You will
if-
get herpes and
if
die.
if you have sex, you will get an STD and you will die.
Yeah.
That was our education.
It's
We're
gonna
like,
happen.
Yeah, and then somebody fucked around, and then you heard stories, and you're like, oh, well, he's fine.
He's not
Everything's
dead,
fine. You're
is
like,
what
I
you're
should try
saying.
this too. And like, oh, this is what they're. It's just all a lie. It's a giant conspiracy because it
Everybody
kind of
banging.
is. It is a conspiracy theory that we are holding on as adults.